And inshallah, at the end of the talk, there will be question and answer session, inshallah. So if you have any questions, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله النبي الكريم. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم. وقل رب زدني علما. Respected and honorable ulama kiram, brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, first and foremost, I'm very grateful to Maulana Saqib Sahib and this community here for inviting me to speak on a very important subject, very important topic, which is the fiqh of halal consumption, which is what we are eating, the rulings regarding what we consume, and the spiritual effects that this has on our lives. So there's a lot that can be mentioned. This can be a very lengthy discussion, but I don't want to make it an extremely lengthy discussion. I want to make it, inshallah, to the point that we learn something, and that it's not so much information that when we leave today, we have no idea what we were talking about. So it's better that, inshallah, we focus in on some key things. However, I think it's very important that we start with some definitions. Now the thing is, for the most part, for most people, I will say that all of these things are very basic. We already know what they are. The definitions of, what is something that is zabiha, what is something which is, not zabiha. All these definitions is very important that we know. Why? Because when you and I, or for example our sisters, who most of the time they do the grocery shopping, and they are the ones who are buying the meat for the house, when they are seeing products in the markets, it's very important that we are educated as to what it is that we are reading on the boxes. What are we reading? What are we being told? Because definitions of things have been redefined, unfortunately. So first and foremost, we'll start with the definitions of what is halal and what is haram. Right? Very basic. And I don't want anyone to think that this is like disrespectful that I'm defining these basic terms, but this is just so we start from the same page and we build up. Obviously, we know that the meaning of halal is all things that are permissible in the Sharia that Muslims can engage in. So some people, that's actually a very good question, because some people, they joke about this. They say that, oh, when you talk about my income is halal. What does that mean? I can eat my money? It's a ridiculous response. That's not the meaning of halal income. Right? But there are people, just a couple months ago, someone was joking and laughing at me, saying, what are you talking about? Halal income. Are we eating dollar bills? And I was thinking, what is this guy thinking? He's completely confused. But no. So when we say that define these terms, what does halal mean? Halal means everything permissible in Islam. If your job is halal, that means the income that you earn from there is permissible in Islam. Meaning, if you're a drug dealer, your income is not permissible in Islam. That means halal or haram income. If you have a relationship with someone, a man likes a woman. If you do nikah with that woman, this is a halal relationship. But if you have a relationship with a woman that's not your wife, you don't do nikah, then this is a haram relationship. Right? Basic definitions. Everybody already knows these things, but I'm just sharing them. So then, of course, the most common usage is when it comes to the food that we eat. When something is halal, we know that that means we can eat it. And when something is haram, that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbade us from consuming that thing. And that's obviously the topic of today's presentation, the food aspect of it. So now we go to the next definition, which is what is considered zabiha, right? And what is not zabiha. Because sometimes you'll find in certain stores or certain restaurants, meat markets, even in our conversations with each other, sometimes we find that people say things like, my food is halal, but it's not zabiha. Or this is zabiha halal. And now the average person is thinking, I don't know all these new words. I don't know the definitions of all these words. I'm confused. Can I eat it? Can I not eat it? So I'll explain also very quickly. When we say something is halal, our immediate thought goes to what? When we go on Qurbani, when we go to the farm, we take an animal, a sheep, a cow, a goat, right? We take an animal, someone holds the animal down, we say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar with a sharp knife, and we cut the throat across from here to here. This is what we see on Eid al-Adha, right? This is what most people, you could say, the majority of people, when they hear the word halal meat, this is what they're thinking, right? That's what we're thinking. So the word dhabiha, right? Dhabiha is the method in which Islam defines the way an animal was slaughtered. So an animal that was slaughtered with dhabh is this exact definition. So when something says zabiha, this is what it means. A Muslim who slaughters an animal with his hand by taking the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the time of slaughter on each animal. This is the definition in the Sharia. What does the word zabiha mean? Why this is important is because I'm going to explain to you, other people have interpreted these words to mean something completely different. That nobody has defined these words like that before. But somehow, some corporations have decided that no, there are other ways we can interpret these words. And this is actually a huge problem for us now, in America, but also around the world, unfortunately. My family is from Afghanistan, and my close friends recently visited Afghanistan. And when I say that this has become an issue globally, in Afghanistan, the meat shop was selling chicken that was slaughtered from a machine from America in Afghanistan. Why? Why is there chicken from America, machine slaughtered, not by the hand of a Muslim, found in Afghanistan? This is very confusing. But this is kind of the state of affairs that we are dealing with. So this is why it's so important that we have these types of programs, but also why we should be having these types of conversations, because it's not something that, number one, it doesn't happen, or number two, this happens maybe here and there. No, this is an issue affecting everybody nationwide and even globally. So we know the definition of halal, we know the definition of haram, the definition of the word zabiha, the process in which a Muslim sacrifices an animal, sacrificing from the throat, cutting at least the 3 out of the 4 main arteries in the neck of the animal, allowing the animal to bleed out. This is what we accept as halal. And this is where a lot of people, the definitions confuse them. So there's a famous hadith, many of us have heard before, many of us have read before. This is not something which is new. There's a lengthy hadith, but I wanted to share the significance of why it's important that we should talk about this. In a lengthy hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentions, إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى طَيِّبٌ لَا يَقْبَلُ إِلَّا طَيِّبًا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ أَمَرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ بِمَا أَمَرَ بِهِ الْمُرْسَلِينَ فَقَالَ, that the Prophet ﷺ narrates this hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure, and Allah does not accept anything other than that which is pure. And then He gives 2 messages to all of us. He says that Allah commanded the believers, the Muslims, the same message He gave to the Anbiya, which is what? He says, يَا أَيُّهَا الرُّسُلُ كُلُوا مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَاعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. Number 1, O messengers, eat from that which is pure and do righteous deeds. And then He says, وَقَالَ تَعَالَى يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُلُوا مِنْ طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. That all you who believe, eat from the pure and wholesome things that we have provided for you. These are the 2 ayat of Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the Anbiya that now the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sharing with all of us. So think about this. Number 1, the message of the Anbiya is the same message that you and I are receiving. So how important is this for us to pay attention to? Definitely we should pay attention. But then he mentions a very interesting story of a person. ثُمَّ ذَكَرَ رَجُلًا يُطِيلُ السَّفَرَ أَشْعَثَ أَخْبَرَ يَمُدُّ يَدَيْهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ فَقَالَ يَا رَبُّ يَا رَبُّ. So then the Prophet ﷺ changes a little bit and he mentions a story. And he mentions a story specifically of a person. ثُمَّ ذَكَرَ رَجُلًا يُطِيلُ السَّفَرَ. He went on a long journey. أَشْعَثَ أَخْبَرَ. He became disheveled and his body became covered in dust. But this person, he has his hands raised to the sky, making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, before I continue, one thing is very important to understand. In Islam, from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we know that the more hardship a person goes through in life, the more Allah accepts from you. So if you go through a lot of difficulty in your life, and then you raise your hand and make dua, Allah accepts your duas right away. So in the story of this person, look at the things he went through. ثُمَّ ذَكَرَ رَجُلًا يُطِيلُ السَّفَرَ. What do we know about a musafir? We know a musafir, when he makes dua, his dua is mustajab. The dua of a musafir is accepted right away. This person is a musafir. Then he says, أَشْعَثَ أَغْبَرَ. He is disheveled, his clothes are messed up, covered in dust. Which means that he went through a long journey, difficult route. And then he says, يَمُدُّ يَدَيْهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. And he's putting his hands like this, making dua. Just after namaz right now, Imam Sahib led the prayer. he made a dua. What type of dua he made? He made a dua like this. He didn't make a dua like this. Why? What's the difference? Because a dua like this is like the dua of a person who is drowning. You are begging Allah. You are desperate. You have no other alternative. You're begging, you're screaming and crying to Allah, oh Allah, help me. And this is how this person is making dua. He's raising his hands to the sky. So then how does the Prophet ﷺ say in response to this? What we know now is that everything that this person is about to make dua for should be accepted definitely. Whatever this person makes dua for should be accepted right away. Except what happens? Now the Prophet ﷺ tells us, the reader, something we didn't know before, which is what? وَمَطْعَمَهُ حَرَامٌ. His food that he would eat was from haram. وَمَلْبَسَهُ حَرَامٌ. The clothing he was wearing was earned or is haram. وَغُذِّيَ بِالْحَرَامِ. The way he was raised up in life was based on haram. فَأَنَّا يُسْتَجَابُ لَهُ. So how could Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept anything from this person? This is very important for you and I, respected brothers and sisters, that we could be doing all the right actions, but because of one action that we are not paying attention to, which is what we are consuming and what we are drinking and what we are wearing and how we are raising up our families, we could ruin everything and lose everything. It's a hadith narrated in Sahih Muslim. So there's a couple of things, inshallah, before I move away from this, I wanted to share also that there's another hadith that we know also, very common hadith, shared often, we know much about it. The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam shares with us this hadith where he says, إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيِّنْ وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنْ وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. He says the halal things, everybody knows what they are. For example, water. Everybody knows water is halal. وَإِنَّ الْحَرَامَ بَيِّنْ. The haram things such as pork and alcohol, everybody knows that. It's very clear, no disagreement. However, there's a gray area. There are certain things that many people don't know much about, which is وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورٌ مُشْتَبِهَاتٌ. There's a gray area of things that we don't know. لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. Most people don't know much about them. For example, easy example, when you go to the grocery store, you go to a liquor store, gas station, you pick up a bag of chips. On the back of the bag of chips, there's so many ingredients. Most of us in this room don't know what that is, to be completely honest, right? Most of us don't know. So maybe this is what this hadith is referring to. Now I want to clarify, this hadith is not only talking about food. This can be about income, this can be about anything. But for the sake of our argument, for this conversation today, we make this hadith about, we take the lesson from the food angle. Okay? So he says that most people don't know about the middle part, the gray area. فَمَنِ اتَّقَ الشُّبُهَاتِ فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. However, anybody who stays away from the doubtful things, if you avoid eating doubtful food, then you have protected what? Your religion and your honor. So the ulama mentioned, how does a person protect his honor and his dignity by staying away from doubtful things? Well, you protect your religion because if that doubtful thing was actually haram, now you've committed a sin. And that doubt is now affecting your iman. And how does it affect your honor? Because imagine you are a righteous person, religious person, you are the imam of the masjid, and you're eating all sorts of chips and cookies and food and meat and everything, and you don't know, is that really halal or really haram? You just don't know. But you eat it anyways, who cares? Now, everyone thinks of you as the imam of the masjid with so much respect, and then they see you eating all this mashkook, this doubtful food. Now their idea of you, their concept of you has lowered in their eyes. You know the example of this, it sounds kind of maybe difficult for some people, but think about it this way. If someone gives you 2 cups of drinks, one is water and one has rat poison mixed in it, and they give it to you, most people are going to say, and then they say to you, one of them is water, one has rat poison in it. And the problem is, I don't know which one's which. Here you go. Most people are going to say, forget about both of them. I'm not even going to take the chance. So look, the rest of this hadith mentions this. وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ. As for the one who falls into the doubtful things, and you eat doubtful, take doubtful income, what happens? It's as if you have fallen directly into the haram itself. So then he says, كَالرَّاعِ يَرْعَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى. He says, like a shepherd who his sheep are getting close to the neighbor's yard. يُوشِكُ أَن يَقَعَ فِيهِ. It's as if the sheep are getting close to eating the neighbor's yard. This is how a person, when they are doubtful, this is what happens. If you know that this is your yard, and this is the neighbor's yard, but you let your sheep get closer and closer, eventually a time comes when you don't know, is the sheep eating from my grass or the neighbor's grass? Meaning, eventually a time will come when you don't care about halal or haram, you just eat everything. A time will come where you will be eating haram and you won't even care. Because you never cared before. Now someone's going to tell you it's haram, you say, okay, well, who cares? I'll eat that too. So then, he mentions, أَلَا وَإِنَّ لِكُلِّ مَلِكٍ حِمَى أَلَا وَإِنَّ حِمَى اللَّهِ مَحَارِمُ أَلَا وَإِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّ أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبُ. So then he continues and he mentions something very interesting, and he says that there is a piece of flesh in our body. If that is correct, our whole body is correct. And if that piece of flesh goes bad, our whole body is bad. And what is that thing? It is our heart. Our hearts. And why is this important? This whole hadith, why I wanted to share, is because all of this food that we consume, whether it's halal or haram, it has a direct effect with our iman. If we say that, I don't feel like waking up for Fajr. I don't want to go to Taraweeh. I don't want to recite Quran. I don't want to go to Maktab. I don't want to, become more religious. I don't want to wear hijab. Where is this susti coming from? Where is this lack of motivation coming from? A lot of times it could be because of the food that we are eating. We are not aware of what we are consuming, and it's destroying our iman. It's ruining our iman. It's ruining our children. People are saying, my kids don't listen to me. Why they don't listen to you? What are you feeding those children? Someone said one time, if a mother, she's pregnant, in her stomach a child is being created. If she's eating haram food, the haram food is going in and creating a child from that haram food. And if a mother is pregnant and she has a child in her stomach and she's eating only halal and tayyib food, then she is literally, physically creating a halal and tayyib child in her stomach. These are things that we should take into consideration. These are things that we should be very mindful of. There's another very interesting story that's mentioned, that there's a few misconceptions that have circulated in our communities that I wanted to also touch upon and mention as well. People say this, unfortunately, this has been hijacked in our communities, where people say things like, when we talk about halal and haram food, it's a very sensitive subject for many people. It's very sensitive. So they ask questions all the time. They say things like, this one here, can I just trust the word of another Muslim if they say that something is halal? Can't I just trust them and eat that food anyway? So there's a couple of issues with that. And inshallah I'll mention it. And another one is, can't we just say Bismillah and eat that food? Another common one. Right? I have a few more inshallah I'll mention. The first one, can't I just trust the word of another Muslim when they say something is halal? Now here's the thing. There's a famous story. Some of you may have heard this before. But Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he had a servant in his home who had become Muslim. But one day Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he came home and his servant was preparing a meal for him. And when he was preparing that meal, he said that, do you know where I got the money for this meal for you? So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq asked him, no, where'd you get the money from? He said that, before Islam, I used to do this kahanat, this type of palm reading and things like this. And I wasn't even that good at it. So he's admitting, I wasn't even that good at it, but people were paying me money for it, and it was good money. So I was ripping people off and doing fake palm reading, and I made a lot of money from it. So he said that I earned some money from it, so I saved that money. So for those who don't know, doing any type of palm reading and reading the stars and fortune telling, these are all considered haram in Islam. Totally haram. It's not a job you want to get into. You can't even go to these people. It's haram. namaz is not accepted. Your prayers are not accepted. So this person who was the servant of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said that was my job. And I saved a lot of money. So now today you came home, so I thought I'm going to do something special today. So I went and I took that money I had saved and I went and I bought this meat and this meal and I prepared it, and that's what you're eating from. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was already eating while he's mentioning the story. So he mentions that. So the servant says, هَذَا الَّذِي أَكَلْتَ مِنْ. That's the food right here in front of you that you're eating. I got it from that money. That haram money, basically. So then what happened? فَأَدْخَلَ أَبُو بَكْرٍ يَدَهُ فَقَاعَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ فِي بَطْنِهِ. He says that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq put his hand in his mouth and he threw up everything that he ate. And in the commentary of this athar, it mentions very beautifully, it says that the reason why Abu Bakr as-Siddiq put his hand in his mouth and threw up all that food was because if the food stayed in his stomach, eventually getting absorbed into his body, that means that he became nourished upon the haram. غُذِّيَ بِالْحَرَامِ. Like in the hadith I mentioned before, one of the reasons why the du'as of that musafir was not accepted was because he was nourished, raised upon haram. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq did not want that to happen to him. So he threw that up. Now I'm not saying, if we ever find out we ate haram food, now everybody starts throwing up food and sticking their hands in their mouth. I'm not saying you should do that. But what I'm saying is, look how important it is. This was the word of a Muslim. Many people, they get offended. They get offended when you say, brother, where did you buy your meat from? I understand. Let me just say something. I understand that that can sound offensive. I understand that that could make the other person's heart feel like you disrespected them. But I say this from the bottom of my heart, respected brothers and sisters, this is a matter that affects everybody. It's not your fault. It's not even the women who bought the meat, it's not their fault. I even say so much that it's not the fault of the grocery store, the halal grocery store you shopped at. Why? Because the meat slaughterhouses that are selling this meat to the grocery store, they're saying on the box, this is halal, this is sabiha, this is hand slaughter. So when they are selling it to them, the store owner, he's sincere, he's mukhlis, he just wants halal for his community. So then we buy from him, and then now we have this at home. So it's very important to understand that when we say these are a misconception, can we just trust the word of another Muslim? The reality is that we should trust the word of another Muslim. The problem, however, is that in America, this is a musibah we are all struggling with. This is a problem that is everywhere. Majority of the chicken supply in the market is machine slaughter. What is machine slaughter? Machine slaughter means that there's not a Muslim at the time of slaughtering, saying the tasmiyah on every single animal. Machine slaughter means that these birds are coming in a line quickly like this, and there's a spinning blade like this, stationary in one area, and the birds are coming and their necks are getting cut and they're moving. Nobody is saying Bismillah on every single chicken. Nobody is making zabah with their hand on any chicken. It's a machine. They turn it on at 2 o'clock in the morning and they come back at 9 o'clock in the morning and 2 million chickens are dead. Shaheed chicken. Murdar chicken. Unfortunately. This is machine slaughter. This is what's happening. And then this gets the label of halal. Someone said to me, who am I to go and talk about this issue? The reality is, yes, I'm a nobody. However, also in America, there is no halal governing body that exists. There is no USDA for halal food. There is one statement that says anything that's labeled as halal has to be halal. But if I go and ask these slaughterhouses, what does halal mean? This is the point. Halal to them can mean a machine. Halal to them can mean shoot with a gun. Halal with them means you can shoot with electricity. And all these definitions. So unfortunately, there doesn't exist one dedicated organization focusing on educating and putting these things into with inspections and verification. The next misconception is, can't we just say Bismillah and eat that food? I'm sure we've heard this before. As a matter of fact, one Ramadan many years ago, I was speaking during after Taraweeh at a masjid for the short bayan after Taraweeh is over. And after it was done, I was leaving the masjid. In the courtyard of the masjid, there was a garbage bag, a garbage can that caught my attention because I saw the, the famous golden arches, the bag of McDonald's in the garbage can. And it just caught my eyes as I was leaving the masjid. So as I was leaving, I saw this, so I just, I was just checking it, so I went to go see, and I noticed that the garbage bag, the garbage can, is not just one bag, the whole thing is full of McDonald's bags. So I knew the youth director of that masjid, so I went to him and I said, hey, I know sometimes young people, young brothers and sisters, they don't know better maybe, so they go buy McDonald's and then they have it for iftari or they'll eat it. It's not good that they should, if you see them in the masjid, you should say something. It's not right. It's not appropriate. People are bringing McDonald's food into the masjid. It's not halal anyways, and now you're bringing this. So then he says, oh, that was not just one or two people. That was our iftari in the masjid today. And I was so confused because I said, I know who you are. What are you talking about? This was your iftari for the masjid. Everybody. Yeah. We had iftari of McDonald's in the masjid. So, then of course he said, just say Bismillah and, what can you do? So I definitely want to clarify this point. There's a story behind this. There's a context why this is the case. Many people, they use this. Just the other day, someone was arguing with me saying, I'm making the people's lives difficult. Just say Bismillah and eat that food. I want to just say I was born and raised in America. I was born and raised here in the Bay Area, right? I, more than probably anybody else, want to go and eat at all these restaurants. I want to go to Burger King. I want to go to McDonald's. I want to go to all these places and eat. But we cannot. This is not because of me. This is not because I am making it haram. It's because it is haram. There's nothing I can do about that. I would love if tomorrow In-N-Out became halal. I would be the first one in line at 2 o'clock in the morning. There's better ways to use my time, but I would be so excited if it was halal. But it's not. What can you do? So there's a story behind this. The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum, once they were gifted some meat by some people. Okay? The Sahaba, they were gifted some meat by some people. So they didn't know what to do with this meat, so they went to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, Ya Rasulullah, these people, they gave us some meat. We don't know what to do with this. So then what did the Nabi ﷺ say to them? He said, Sammullaha alayhi wa kulu. He said, take the name of Allah and eat from it. So the Sahaba said, Bismillah, and they ate. Now, that sounds exactly like what I just described, which is say Bismillah and eat. The difference is, that random group of people that had given the Sahaba the meat were not kuffar. Wal-'iyadhu billah. They were new Muslims. And those new Muslims had made a sacrifice. And from that meat, they gave it to the Sahaba. So when they came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said to the Sahaba, say Bismillah and eat it, it was not because they had haram meat that now you said Bismillah and the haram meat became halal. No. It's because the Prophet ﷺ knew that those new people were new Muslims. The Sahaba did not know that they were Muslim. So when the Prophet said, say Bismillah, it's because the meat was already halal. The Sahaba just didn't know. So he said, say Bismillah to remove the doubt in your mind that this food might not be halal. So my honorable brothers and sisters, this is not correct. It's not a valid argument to say Bismillah and eat the food. You cannot go to, Texas Roadhouse Steakhouse tomorrow, go to In-N-Out, order the meal for everybody, and just before everybody eats, wait, say Bismillah, then eat this food. This does not work like that. Saying Bismillah is not a magic spell that converts haram gosht into, halal. It doesn't work like that. This is another misconception. Sadly, this has gone all over America. People say this. Say Bismillah and eat it. It doesn't work like that. Another one I'll mention, another misconception. Oftentimes, many people, they say, I don't have to ask if it's halal. The sin is on them. The gunnah is on them if it's not halal. Here's the thing, my beloved brothers and sisters. Even if the sin is on the other person, the effect on your iman is on you. When you eat something, knowing, mistakenly, you thought it was halal and you ate it and it was not, yes, the sin would be on the person who deceived you. But at the same time, does it have an effect on your iman? Does it have an effect on your spirituality? Yes, of course it does. You cannot deny that. Definitely it has an effect on our iman. It impacts our iman. It makes, it has some effect with our du'as being accepted. Because you still put that into your system. So people say the sin is on them. One time I was with some friends, and they said to me, why don't we go to this restaurant, it's a Chinese restaurant. And I said, okay, that sounds like a kind of a good idea, let's go. Then right before we went, I had just asked my friends, I said, hold on. Did anybody check if this place is halal actually? Because I'm trusting you guys, but you know me, I'm the halal guy, so I have to ask these questions. Did anybody verify and actually check with the restaurant? They said, forget about it, the sin is on them. I said, they're kuffar, what sin is on them? They're already not Muslim. Well, there's no sin on them. If you're a Muslim, then you can say they have guna on them. But if you're not Muslim, what sin is on them? This doesn't even make sense, but we've gotten so used to saying these things that we justify eating even haram food this way. And this is going to have such a huge impact on us, on our own lives, on our children's lives, and our families' lives. This is why we have to understand the title of this program was called Trust But Verify. Trust But Verify. We don't have any doubt in our brothers and sisters. We have no doubt in our Muslim brothers and sisters. But at the same time, we have to, for our own sake, verify what's happening and what's being consumed and what's being shared and what's happening in the community. So I want to just share very briefly, about this organization Maulana Sahib mentioned that I'm a part of. Is called Hafsa. So I want to just briefly share about that, inshallah. And for time, okay, maybe like 15 more minutes? Or 20 minutes? Okay, inshallah. So just briefly, I want to share about this organization called Hafsa. So there's an organization, it's a non-profit. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you don't, may have not. It's a non-profit organization that was started by ulama, namely Mufti Abdullah Nana and Maulana Hamza Maqbool from Chicago, and a few other brothers who were sincere, and they came together for the sole purpose of creating a system that allows the individual consumer and the Muslim community to do exactly the thing that I had mentioned, which is to trust but verify. We have no doubt in our local grocery store, right? Our local Muslim grocery store, local restaurant, local butcher. But the problem is not that local business, but it is on the higher level, these corporations. For example, if you go to Restaurant Depot today, there's a company called Coach Chicken. Coach, K-O-C-H. This brand is not owned by Muslims. Coach is a family name of some very evil people, actually. Some very evil, non-Muslim people. And why do they have a halal brand of chicken? This confuses me. There's a halal brand of chicken that says halal. It's in the grocery store today. It's called Coach. This, if you Google that family, is like the most shaitan family in a billionaire family. Why do they have a chicken, halal chicken? It's not halal, it's machine slaughtered. Right? It's not zabiha. It's not hand slaughtered. This is a machine slaughtered product that's available. And this is something that we are unaware of. That's the thing that I'm trying to get to. We are unaware of it. And so then, back in 2007, 2008, these two ulama, may Allah bless them, they came together and they said, let's start something that we can at least begin the process of verifying these products. In South Africa, there's an organization there that verifies, called Sanha. Sanha verifies all the halal meats, their verification. Like, USDA, it's like a third-party audit. They check all the products to such an extent that almost all the grocery stores, almost all the restaurants, they are already halal. And even non-Muslims are buying this halal meat. Why? Because the Muslims, they took control of this much earlier on. So since 2007, 2008, this organization, Hafsa, has been around doing this work. I joined maybe 1 or 2 years later in 2009. So I think that's been almost 13 years, 14 years, something like that. By Allah's fadl, I've been a part of this organization. Again, the goal being to verify where all these supplies are coming from. The motto of this organization is from farm to fork. That we check from the farm all the way to the final product, every step of the way. That what is happening to this animal, how is it being slaughtered, how is it being cut, how is it being packaged, how is it being shipped out. Then when it arrives, does somebody else cut it and open it and put it on the machine that had pork, or is it directly come to the restaurant? Every step of the way. This is something that we check, this is something that we verify. So, one of the reasons why I wanted to speak about this organization is because this organization, Hafsa, has a national presence, right? It's nationwide. We have one chapter in the Bay Area. We have another one in Los Angeles, another in San Diego, then in Seattle, Washington, and like this across the country, Chicago, Detroit, Florida, New York, Texas. So across the country, there are different branches of this organization, and the work is the same. We have, mashallah, brothers in the community who this interests them. This subject is something that they're very interested in. So what do? They say, you know what, I also want to help. So what do? We have part of the organization for restaurants or for grocery stores is every week we send our inspectors and they do random inspections. Again, not because we believe they're lying, but because when the distributor sells them this meat, oftentimes they mix them hand-slaughtered meat with other meat. And therefore we have our inspectors to check with their invoices, to check the bag, to check the products, to ensure that they have exactly what they want in their store. So we do this with all of our stores, all of our businesses nationwide. The benefit of this is that there is a ikhtilaf and a difference of opinion amongst scholars regarding hand-slaughtered and machine-slaughtered. I had mentioned this briefly. So I'll mention this again just to kind of go over this with everyone. What is the difference between hand-slaughtered and machine-slaughtered? Hand-slaughtered means, just like I explained to you, that a Muslim with his hand takes the name of Allah with a knife, and let's take the example of chickens. Because hand-slaughter, machine-slaughter is something only to poultry, right? Only to chickens. Chickens, duck, turkey, right? So, the traditional method, if you take any Muslim around the world, and you take an animal, and you say, I'm going to cook you some chicken, or turkey, or duck, or bird, whatever it is. You're going to take that bird, you take a knife, you say, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and you cut across the throat, the animal bleeds out. No Muslim on the face of this earth will reject that food, right? Everyone will look at that and say, okay, no problem, I'll eat that. But where does the differences occur? The differences occur the moment you do something else. Like, we're going to use a electrocution. We're going to put the bird in a tub that's filled with water, with electricity, and when the head goes in there, the animal dies. Now there's ikhtilaf. Oh, we don't accept that. Or gas. You put all the birds in a room, turn on the gas, and the birds die from gas. Right? They cannot breathe. So then they all die. This same thing. Now you have ikhtilaf. Oh, some people say, I don't know about that. Gas? I don't know what type of zabad is gas. So then they don't accept gas. Or there's the machine method I explained to you earlier. The chickens, they're coming on a line. You know, on like a, you ever been to the dry cleaner? All the clothing, they come in a line. Birds come like that in a line, upside down, hanging by their feet. Wish I had a picture of that. Thought I did. Oh, I do. These birds are alive here, okay? So don't be scared. So, but like this is what it looks like in a chicken slaughterhouse, okay? It doesn't happen on a farm. That's what we think. It's like nice chickens running around, having a fun time, and then we take one. No. Industrial chicken slaughterhouses look like this. The birds are hanging upside down, and as they pass, this machine is moving quickly. So there's someone standing there. Now I will say, with my own eyes, I saw one of the largest hand-slaughtered chicken facilities in America. They are doing the hand-slaughtered method. I saw this. I went to Louisiana myself. I drove from Texas all the way to Louisiana. It was like a 6-hour drive. I get to the slaughterhouse at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I see 14 Muslims. Think about this. 14 Muslims in somewhere in the middle of a forest in Louisiana. There's a huge chicken slaughterhouse. And they're cutting the hand-slaughtered chicken for the whole America. This is the qudrat of Allah. Amazing. You would not even imagine. But it was a ajib feeling actually. When I walked inside, I became I actually wanted to cry. I was so emotional. 14 Muslims are slaughtering enough chicken by hand to feed almost all of America. And none of us even knew that. Nobody knew that. I guarantee you most of us didn't even know that. Anyways, I see them, they're standing there on the line. I'm watching their lips. It's very loud in all the machines, but you're wearing headphones, but you see on the lips of everybody. They're standing there, and as the bird comes, and they're slaughtering the chickens. I said this to somebody in another program once, and they said, you're lying, there's no way they can do it. I said, okay, maybe someone did jadoo on me where I'm making this up, but I was there, I saw it with my own eyes. 14. He goes, how is 14 people going to do it? I said, I don't know, maybe there was that much barakat in it that it worked that way. But in all reality, in all seriousness, like I said, these slaughtermen, they were doing it. Now, what happens in the machine method? In the machine method, the same birds are coming on this same line, just like this. But the difference is there's a spinning blade in one area, right? Kind of like, these fans. You see this fan is upside down? But imagine it was the other way, standing up. And it was like spinning like this. Very, very fast. Sharp blade spinning. As these chickens pass by in this line, their neck is supposed to come right next to the blade, so it would cut their necks. But here's the problem. The problem is that a machine is doing the slaughtering. Number one. Number two, no one is saying Bismillah, Allahu Akbar on every one of those chickens passing by the machine. Problem number two. Problem number three, that chickens on this line are alive, obviously. And if they're alive and they're passing, chickens, they sense noise. They sense air. They sense these different things. So while they're on this line, sometimes they get scared. They flap their wings. And when they flap their wings, they move away from this blade. So if they move away from the blade, that means that the station, right after the blade, they're going to that one alive. But here's the other problem. What is immediately after the blade? Is the scalding dunk, the hot water, so you can take the feathers off easily. What happens when a live chicken goes inside of hot water? It drowns. It drowns because they go under the water. They stay under the water. That means that the chicken did not die from getting the throat cut. It died by drowning. So, again, these are some of the major problems that we find with the mechanical slaughter process. And this is what's happening. These are what we call hand-slaughtered versus machine slaughter. For cows, for example, for beef and cattle, because sometimes we tend to think that, what happens with them. So there's two methods of killing, or slaughtering rather, beef and cattle, large animals like this. Okay? This is the correct way, what you are seeing here. All it is the machine on the left is called a kind of a kill box, where the animal walks inside and it just contains the animal. Keeps them in one area. No problem. The image on the right shows that the animal puts his head through the box and a mechanical lever lifts the head of the animal up. No problem. So far, we are okay with this. Then what happens is a Muslim slaughterman comes. You see the white dot underneath? On the right side, there's a white dot right on the neck. Muslim slaughterman comes with one cut, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and he walks to the other side. Animal is slaughtered, finish. Bismillah, that's it. Animal is horizontally cut. Horizontal. This is what we know, horizontal, this way. Right? This is called a horizontal cut. This would be acceptable. But there are new methods of cutting the cows now, which has existed for a while, but this is what you could say probably the more common way that it's slaughtered in America, known as the vertical cut. The vertical cut is actually a cut from the inside, from the chest of the animal, making an incision above the heart of the animal, the aorta. And what this does is, There's two reasons why they don't cut this way, across the throat. Number one is the skin of the animal, the hide of the animal, they want to preserve it. Because if you cut this way, it makes it very difficult for the person to take the skin of the animal, make leather, to take it off in one piece. Because you cut this way. So it's an odd shape. However, if you cut like this up, it's very easy to take the skin off now. It's kind of like, it's a weird example, but like taking off a jacket. Right? It's very easy. You just take it off like this. But when you cut this way on the cow, now when you're taking the skin off, you mess up the head area. And that's a lot of money for these people. So now we have an issue with beef called horizontal or vertical cut. Now in the vertical cut method, this is what's happening. This is what's happening in vertical cut. The animal is standing there, cut is made above the heart. Now what happens? There's two different things that happen in the blood system of the animal. When we do the horizontal cut, immediately what happens? The animal is led to bleed out. When the animal bleeds out, all the blood, all the impurities come out of the body of the animal. And that animal becomes clean, actually. Because the meat becomes cleaner. It's free from blood. In the vertical cut method, when the animal's cut this way, what happens is, when the heart is cut, signal is sent to the brain, hey, hold on to this blood. We have a loss here. There's a loss. Hold on. So then the heart stops pumping blood. It retains the blood. What happens as a result? The blood stays in the body of the animal. Up to 18 pounds of blood can stay inside of the body of the animal at one time during the vertical cut process. So if this is happening, that means now, when you look at the meat of this animal, it's dark red. Dark red. Compared to the meat of horizontally cut, it's almost pink. It's very light. It's pink. Because the blood drained out. I went to a slaughterhouse, non-Muslim, but they were doing this vertical cut. As I was leaving, I saw the process. It was horrible. I left. As I was leaving, from my rear view mirror, I see that the plant manager is running after me. And he's trying to stop me. So I stop and I say, what's going on? And he says, I just want to say one thing. I didn't want to say this inside of there with other people listening, but I just wanted to say this to you now. He said that when I just want to let you know that I used to work with Muslims in Muslim beef slaughterhouse. He said, I want to let you know, you saw the beef that was in my slaughterhouse, they were dark red. I said, yeah. He goes, I've seen the Muslim slaughterhouse, the beef is light pink. Very clean. It tastes better. And our beef is bad. Why? Because all the blood stays inside. I just want to let you know that I prefer, if I can find it, to get halal meat. This is what a non-Muslim plant manager, his job is there. And he's telling me as I'm leaving. And we have no reason for him to tell me that. We don't have a financial agreement, nothing. I just went to go do an audit just to see how they do the slaughter there. And that's what he told me. So, respected brothers and sisters, this is an issue. This is affecting everyone. Right? This is affecting everyone. Why? Because this vertical cut beef is everywhere, and this machine slaughtered chicken is everywhere. So going back to the organization Hafsa, what we accept is the standard in which, inshallah, no one has any ikhtilaf. Which is that if you go back to the hand-slaughtered method, the horizontal cut method, then no Muslim anywhere will have any ikhtilaf. No Muslim will have any issues anywhere. Wherever you are in the country, wherever you are in the world, right? We know that in some countries they allow machine slaughter, some they don't allow it. Some allow horizontal cut, vertical cut, whatever. But if you provide them this meat, hand-slaughtered chicken, or horizontal cut beef, no alim, no Muslim will say no to that. Why? Because it's the standard method. 1,000 years ago, that's how they were sacrificing. Today, we can even do it. Another objection is that someone might say that, oh, there's no way we can feed all of America this way. I mentioned to you earlier the story of the chicken. It is possible. Actually, the issue is, as Muslims, we are not demanding it. This is why. Because all these chicken slaughterhouses that do machine cut, all of them would be able to switch to hand cut if there was enough demand. If we just demanded it, that same chicken slaughterhouse that I went to, the owner told me, he said, Jabir, you are only doing like approximately 500,000 to maybe 700,000 pounds of chicken a month. That's not a lot for America. This is very little. He said that if the Muslims tomorrow were to say to me, we need 5 million pounds, our slaughterhouse is so big that we could meet that demand. He said something like 3 million or 5 million pounds, so we can meet that demand. But the demand has to be there. We have to want that. So, going again back to the organization Hafsa, one of my goals is that every single month I wanted to go to a different community, to a different masjid, and give the same presentation. The goal of this is not that we should make anybody worried, make anybody sad or depressed or, pereshan, that, oh no, what are we going to do now? The point of this is just educational. The point of this is that we give an opportunity for you to ask questions, for you to say, hey, I don't know about this, thank you for telling me, now let me know how I can correct this. For example, in Sacramento, mashallah, there's so much demand for hand-slaughtered products, but we need inspectors. We need brothers in the community who can say, you know what, I live close by to this restaurant, I will go once a week, and I will check them for you. Which, inshallah, I will bring this to a close because I want to make sure that there's enough time, and also so the brothers can, inshallah, I think there's dinner also. So just really quickly, I wanted to just mention this and share this with everyone. Hopefully you can see it. What was that? The last part got cut off. So, this flyer basically just shows the work that we have done. If anybody wanted to support the organization by volunteering their time, we are definitely in need of support for this community. Lodi, Stockton, Sacramento area. We need inspectors, young brothers or brothers with time, once a week, because our inspections, they are random. They're once a week, but randomly once a week, we go visit the store, check the invoices, fill out a small application for Hafsa, and this is our inspections weekly. If anyone has that kind of time or that dedication or they want to support, one way you can support is with your time. Another way, of course, is to support financially, to make a contribution, to make a donation, right? Because this is a non-profit organization. All the information is mentioned there. You can take a picture. Also, anyone who wants to learn more about these things can go onto the website, which is hafsa.org. And you can go there, and there you can ask you can see all of the articles that we have written, all the certified businesses, the restaurants, whatever that we have, you can see it there. And anyone who wants to reach out to me directly, my email is there. Well, it's kind of there. I can't adjust the projector, but basically it says Ahmad, AHMAD .Tareen @hafsa.org. You can reach out to me directly and contact me directly. And this will be, inshallah, another way for any questions anyone that may have, that we can help answer that. So just quickly, I want to switch to the Q&A. So if we have a little bit of time for Q&A, I don't know, we'll give a little bit of time, inshallah, for that. Just really quickly, I'll put that up, inshallah, and then we can. You can take out your phone, so this way you can just text your questions in, and then as your questions come to me, inshallah, then I'll answer them.
They're going to be difficult people to message. Sister, can I be the first one to ask you some questions?
Inshallah, we'll ask maybe a couple questions, but then we'll switch back to this as well. Yeah. Go ahead, yes, you had a question?
Yes. My name is Dr. Azam. I am global halal inspector. Are you aware with America?
Okay.
I
yes,
am
yes.
a representative here in California.
Okay.
I worked 40+ years in poultry slaughtering.
MashaAllah.
And retired. So I'm with the retired now. Some of the information you provided, I do have questions.
Okay.
Because I supervise halal slaughtering of machine slaughtering. Number one, USDA do not allow any company to do halal slaughtering until that plant is certified by a halal organization. So it's not that company can just start producing slaughtering halal birds.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, the problem is with within our Muslim community, Because all Middle East, they accept halal slaughter. And global halal inspector.
Right.
Okay, now there are some countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, they don't. But if you look at Egypt, Middle East, UAE, Saudi Arabia,
Right.
as long as there is a demand, they're gonna be machine slaughter.
Right, exactly.
Now machine slaughter, you slaughter 100 birds in 1 minute.
Right.
With hand slaughter, you can only do, even with 14, not more than 35, 40 birds.
I see.
Right. And I have seen both operations, as a matter of fact, certified. All right?
Right.
So the other thing that I just want to let you know, which now once you cannot have machine slaughter until a Muslim turn that machine on and say kalma, and then you turn the machine on. I have not seen a single plant where Christian turn the machine. Okay, now there are now two concepts. Concepts within Muslim certified scheme. Some prefer to have Muslims standing there all day. That's what happens.
I mean, are you giving the presentation?
No, I'm just
Sure.
because he made some comments which was.
So we can talk about that after, inshallah, Rahman, while having here. So anyone else?
Let me just briefly, Jazakallah khair, Musab. Let me just briefly show this to everyone. So anyone who wants to ask questions on the sister side, brother side, if you go on your phones on menti.com at the top there, it will ask you for the code. Just type this code in. Then you can ask any questions. It will be anonymous. Nobody will know who sent the question, and also nobody from the crowd will be able to see your question. So just go onto the website on your phone, type in the code, and I will be the only one who can see the questions, and even I won't know from who. So anybody who sends it, inshallah, I will receive it. So far, I have received 2 questions. So,
Yes, sir.
I have a quick question. So on Eid al-Adha, a lot of brothers do sacrifice, and before slaughtering the animal, they shoot the animal and then slaughter it properly according to the Islamic way. Is it right way to shoot the animal and then?
yeah, so there's a lot of these things when it comes to the methods of slaughter that the ulama have spoken about. What I'll mention is that our standards with Hafsa is that we don't accept that. But some ulama have permitted that if you shoot the animal, because it's extremely difficult animal to get down, or there's some complications with being able to sacrifice the animal, and so then you do that, but it doesn't kill the animal, it just weakens the animal, and then before it dies you come to slaughter it, then that would be allowed, that would be permissible. So some ulama have given this approval on that, but our organization's standard is that we don't allow that. So we don't allow that process because generally it's difficult to tell that, especially on a grand scale, large scale slaughterhouses. It doesn't happen that way anyways. Yeah. And we normally work with medium sized to large sized slaughterhouses. So, but that's not one of the standards that we would accept. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to add on what you just said, like you mentioned, the way most of sacrifices that are done here, we buy the animal at the farm. That animal we can consider like a wild animal. We cannot control it. So what happened is they tried to get the animal as close to you as possible. And the butcher with his gun, he stuns it, and the animal's not dead. You have to run right there and then flip a speed on it. Because that's the only way you can do that. Unless you have an animal already in cage, and the way you mentioned, that the head sticking out, and that's different.
Yeah.
But the type of animal that we buy here at the Eid time, those are very difficult.
It's difficult to tame, absolutely. I've also seen, I've been to a couple of slaughterhouses that are local local farms, where they have big bulls, they have big animals. So it requires almost, 6, 7 men, sometimes even 10, 15 men to try to bring it together, somehow bring it in, wrap its feet. Even then it's very difficult. So I've seen those different methods, and I would say, on an individual basis, if that's what you can do to control it, then you have to do that. Otherwise, again, from an organizational point of view, we do not accept that. So there's a couple of questions that came in, so let me just go through them, inshallah. And then Masa, how much time? I want to be respectful of the time.
10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Okay.
Well, we can push the Isha by 5-10 minutes. So then
Okay. And Isha was at 7?
Isha is at 7.
Okay. So I'll...
Half hour is enough, inshallah, for food.
Okay. Okay. So I'll start and I'll answer the questions a little bit quickly because some of them are repeated questions. And also because, inshallah, just so that I can answer as many questions as we can with the short amount of time that we have left. First question is that, are hot Cheetos halal? This is a question that I received quite a bit, actually. So the thing is, these questions are questions that are not reflective of like Hafsa as an organization speaking to this, but there's some research that is required to do. The problem is that the reason why I can't say yes or no is because the company itself, Frito-Lay, the company that owns, they are constantly changing ingredients. They're constantly looking for ingredients that are cheaper, cost-effective, and the reality is we live in America. These companies don't care about you and I, that we need to eat halal food. You know, let's make the candy halal for Jabir and his kids so that they can have halal candy. They don't care. Whatever is cheapest, you know, that's why you find, you know, all these lawsuits against these corporations because there's like cancer-causing chemicals, because they're like, let's just find the next cheapest thing we can put there. So the problem is that with Frito-Lay, it's difficult to determine. You can go on their website and check, but it changes. Their ingredients change. The last research that was done was a few months ago, and here's what I'll say, but I'll say this with a disclaimer. Please do your own individual research on this because these ingredients do constantly change. But the last time we checked was a few months back, and from the latest information, the hot Cheetos that we saw was okay. On the Fritos brand, the one that everybody knows, this was halal. It was okay because none of the issues, none of the ingredients in there was, the cheese was the issue, the enzymes were the issue. None of those things came from animal byproducts that were considered impermissible for consumption. Then again, this would only be acceptable for those people who follow the Hanafi madhab because of the ruling with regards to the cheese rennet, right, which comes from the stomach lining of an animal. So there's some differences of opinion there. But again, I'm not passing a, sort of a blanket statement. Please do your due diligence. But I knew that question was coming. This is the first question I get anywhere I go. Is it permissible to eat cheese with enzymes? Yes, it is. But again, it's very important to verify because those enzymes usually, you have to verify its source. What source does it come from? That's the problem because if you see a lot of products nowadays, they're made with microbial enzymes. Right? They are like plant-based, microorganism-based enzymes that they put into the cheeses, for example. So those would be fine, microbial. But if it's not microbial, then you have to verify what the source of that is, which animal product. And again, this can become problematic if it's, from if it's an animal byproduct. So another question came: if there was food that was prepared with a small amount of alcohol and it doesn't intoxicate us, can we eat it? No, because the reality is that what is the definition of small amount of alcohol? Sometimes you go to a fancy restaurant and they do what's called flambe, and they say it's just for flavor. The reality is this is a huge mistake that people make, that they think that wine in particular, not beer, wine cooks out. That's not the only problem with wine. The Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says that wine is najis. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that wine is najis. So even if hypothetically you have wine and you take away the alcohol from it, it doesn't make you drunk. You could drink 10 bottles, it won't make you drunk. But it's najis, and you can never remove the quality of najasat from it. So wine, in anything, in any amount, is not acceptable. That's the ruling on wine. As for other intoxicants like beer, for example, the percentage of it has to be incredibly tiny, very small. So everything produces a certain percentage of alcohol in it, right? When you cook anything ferments, a small percentages of alcohol is created. Less than 0.5% of it would be, which is what most of the ulama have deemed as acceptable. And the ruling for that should be that the amount should be such or so less that if you consume it, you'll be more impacted by the food that you consume rather than the effect of the alcohol on one's body. And the percentage by which the ulama have calculated is less than 0.05%. Okay. What does Hafsa stand for? So Hafsa is an acronym. It stands for the Halal Food Standards Alliance of America. That is the meaning of the organization. What is the meaning of ikhtilaf? Ikhtilaf just means differences of opinion among scholars. Yes, brother.
Question, you mentioned the Louisiana plant. Is it a specific brand of chicken that they distribute, or is it just a slaughterhouse and different distributors are buying from it?
So that plant, that brand no longer exists, but that plant used to be Foster Farms chicken that had a private label produced there called Tahir Chicken. So Tahir Chicken was produced at Foster Farms facility because this was a private label under them. But then another company came, Tyson, and bought that plant from Foster Farms. And when we had said to them, look, we have this halal program for 10 years, Tahir Chicken was running, we want to continue that. Tyson said no. We don't want to have nothing to do with halal. So they shut down Foster Farms and they shut down the halal program. Yeah.
If we are going to alcohol, could you tell us what you think about industrial alcohol, like ethyl alcohol, or wine, or beer, which is allowed, which is not?
So I don't have the detailed information on that. My background is not in actually ingredients. We actually have our executive director, Brother Abdul Ghani, is our food scientist. So he actually does all the ingredients research. And as a matter of fact, inshallah, if the masjid and the community would be interested, we have another presentation which is on ingredients. All those ingredients on the back of products and labels. So we have a separate presentation for that. I can admit that that's not my expertise, so I'd rather not speak to that. But inshallah, we can certainly discuss that afterwards.
The only reason I said that 0.5% you mentioned is alcohol, not other fermented.
Right. Definitely. Of course. Yes.
One more question. So, are there any brands that IFSA suggests or approves, like Crescent or?
Yeah. So we have a list of certified products that we have verified ourselves, and we have a list of approved products that we have an active working relationship with the businesses. So we can discuss that offline, inshallah, afterwards, but most of that information we share directly with the store owners, the meat markets, the grocery stores. We share with them directly, yeah.
Is Crescent one of them? Or?
It is one of the approved products, yes. So another question, inshallah, I'll mention just a few more questions. We'll wrap up in 5 minutes. Are the Hafsa auditors trained on what to look for? Yes. All of the inspectors for Hafsa, they go through a training. They look at ingredients, they look at meat products, they look at brand names, they look at invoices and receipts. And the way that we do the inspections is that we check the invoices, then we contact the distributor to make sure that invoices match what the distributor sold to them, so that there is no sort of mixing and matching on their own. This is kind of some of the work that we do. And then of course on top of that, they're also trained on how to act with the store owners or the managers. None of our inspectors are allowed to argue with them, cause a scene, to fight, to argue. They are meant to just do their job, and if there's any kind of hostility or upset, disappointment, any type of emotions, they leave it and they say, you know what, I'll let Jabir know that you're not happy today, inshallah I'm going to leave. So this is something that sometimes people, they like to make certain accusations that, oh no, your inspectors came and they yelled at us and they fought with us and they said my store is haram. I said, listen, brother, I can guarantee you that whoever that was someone else, but they were not my inspectors. Because that's the first day I meet with my inspectors for the training, that's the first thing I tell them. I tell them, if you ever get in an argument with anybody, I will let go of you. You will not be part of this organization anymore. We don't tolerate that. That's not our job. Our job is not to go around telling people they're haram. We don't even say haram. We say it's not approved by our organization. That's what we say. So there is a question about lab-grown meat. It's a very interesting question. In summary, if you can verify the first DNA sample was from an animal that was slaughtered Islamically, then all the rest in the nasl, in the line of that lab-grown meat would be halal to consume. But if the first DNA sample from the animal that was taken was from a non-halal slaughtered animal, it would not be acceptable. Is all vinegars okay? Yes, all vinegar is okay. Red wine vinegar, sherry vinegar, all vinegar is okay. Last couple of questions, inshallah. Can we eat the food of Ahlul Kitab? I should have mentioned this earlier. I forgot to mention this one. It's a very good one, but the thing is, this will take a long time. In summary, the issue with the meat of Ahlul Kitab is that, number one, first and foremost, America is not a Christian country. Nobody can say that definitively. Americans don't even admit to this. Lawmakers in America don't admit to this. The founding fathers of this country that created America don't agree to this. Their own statements, Thomas Jefferson, some of the other founding fathers themselves have stated, this is a country that's full of Christians, but this is not a Christian country. Which means that we all just ended up here, and we all happen to be Christian, but the goal is not to make this a Christian country. That being said, if you go to any of the largest slaughterhouses in America today, and you go pull 10 slaughterhouses off the line, I guarantee you, you will not get 10 Christians in a row. Or you will not find people that all believe in these same beliefs. So, the meat of Ahlul Kitab, I would say number one, first issue is find that. Where? Who is doing that? Actual Ahlul Kitab. Second of all, the ayat of Quran talk about the meat of Ahlul Kitab, the taba'ih of them. So طَعَامُهُمْ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ, that their food is permissible for you, is the Mufassirin mentioned, their meat, the zabh of their food. Not the other food, not all the other food. The other thing is, keep in mind, they don't take the name of Allah nowadays at all at the time of their slaughter. This becomes a rawaj, a practice for them. There was a slaughterhouse in Texas that we met with, that there was a Jewish rabbi and he was doing the slaughtering. He said to our Muslim slaughtermen, I'm an atheist. I do this as a rabbi because of the job of it, the money for it. I do this for a job. I'm doing kosher, but I'm an atheist. I don't even believe in God. How many more people like that exist, for example? You know? So this is why it becomes complicated. There's a lot more that can be said. But I will stop here. Any other questions, inshallah, we can discuss offline. Jazakumullah khairan to everyone staying for this program. If anyone has any additional questions, of course, reach out to me directly. But I thank you for your time. Jazakumullah khairan to you and the community and the Imam Sahib. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullah khairan. Inshallah Rahman. Now food is ready, food is waiting for you. But before the food, inshallah, if I could have 5 volunteers, inshallah, for after salah. Who's ready? Inshallah. Bilal, number 1, Bilal. Who else? Youngsters. Okay. Adam, are you? Okay, inshallah. That's enough, inshallah. Ibad. Okay, that's enough, inshallah. Let's go ahead, inshallah. Food is waiting.
Share the slides just because it's information, but definitely if there's anything, for example, if ever was any questions on yeah.